Hi everyone. In this session, we're going to have a brief look at one of the more hidden treasures of Wikidata, property talk pages. So let's look at a property. Here on the main page of Wikidata, you can find one, for example, highest point. Now you will get to the property that describes the highest point of some region. For example, the Mount Everest on Earth here. And you can find all this data and so on. But there is more to these properties. If you go to the discussion page of this property, you will find a lot of documentation that's super helpful. What you can find here is interesting information about this property, such as examples again, the domains of where you should be using this property, like on a geographic location, racing as a fictional location, and so on. You have a source for values for this property. In this case, there's a list of countries by highest point, for example, on Wikipedia, but there are, of course, many other sources where you can get this from. Additionally, here at the top, you can find some useful queries. For example, here you can find a query for current uses. So this will give you all the items on Wikidata where this property is used right now. Or statistics by class. So you can find out stuff like highest point is most often used on continents, for example. Then, if you scroll further down, you will find lists that are very helpful, especially helpful for data quality work. So here we have count of items by number of statements. So, and the items with the most statements. So this gives you a list of the items that have the most highest points. Now, if an item has, let's say, 10 highest points, that might indicate a problem, and maybe you want to check that out. Or you can find items with the most identifier properties that use the highest point property. So those are all the items that have a lot of entry in other databases, other catalogs, other websites, and so on. And this is a good proxy for finding the most popular entries in Wikidata that have a highest point. Again, this is a good way to find items that should get a lot of attention for data quality work, because a lot of people should probably be interested in the data of those items. And you will find many more lists here that I highly encourage you to explore. But you can not just find lists, you can also find map visualizations, for example, of all the different items that have a highest point. Then if you go further down, you will find this little table that tells you where this property is currently used and the percentage. So right now, the highest point is used almost exclusively in the main part of the statements, and sometimes 23 times in a qualifier. In this case, someone should probably check out those 23, which you can find if you click on this link, these 23 items, and see if it makes sense to use highest point in a qualifier in this case. Here you will find a pre-made search. Check out the other session we had on special search hacks. And you can find all the items that have a specific highest point. And now, if you scroll down further, you will find constraints. So definitions of how this property should be used. And for each of those, you will find a list of violations where it's used in a wrong way. So for example, here, this last one, highest point should only be used on items. It should not be used on lexemes, for example. Now, If you wanted to check if it's used anywhere on a lexeme, this is where you would find the cases where it's used on a lexeme, and you can fix them. And one last thing we have here, where is this property actually used? So if we are making significant changes to this property, how it is used, if we're renaming it, if we're even deleting it maybe, then this is a good place to check where on Wikipedia and the other Wikimedia projects, or maybe even external tools, this data is used. So we should give them a heads up that things are changing. And of course, after that, like on every talk page, you will find a bunch of questions and discussions around this property. I hope you will find some interesting info here about all the properties you are interested in. Check them out.